All right, everybody, welcome to JCLive, your weekly source for JCL news and fun. Let me go ahead and turn down the Phoenix Wright music just a little bit. Welcome to the show. We are live here. Let's see, did I do the full intro? I don't remember. I was too busy focusing on the music. Welcome to JCLive, your weekly source for JCL news and fun. I am your host, Mr. Kurt Ristroff, Publications Chair for the National Junior Classical League, an organization of middle and high school students in classical courses. And with me today is special guest Annie Class, the NJCL Parliamentarian. Annie, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going great, Mr. Ristroff. I'm going to have a lot of fun with this interview.
Wonderful.
Hopefully people will enjoy it.
Yeah, it's so good to have you. Let me get some more calming music going, just a little bit more chill music. Let's see. It's still Phoenix Wright music, though, but it is going to be going.
Of course. Why wouldn't it be?
No, of course. Okay. So, welcome to the show, everybody. Some people are going to be joining in, but we are going to start things off early and on time and in a slightly different order from what we normally do. So, normally, for the past several episodes, what we've done is started out with some JCL announcements and then some officer updates and then gotten into the feature. But this time we're going to get into the feature right from the start. I see Susan Shearer is in the chat. Welcome, Miss Shearer. It's great to have you. It's really wonderful to see you here week after week. It really is. And welcome to everybody else, of course, in the chat. As always, if you have any questions for me, for Annie, tag us in the chat at National JCL or National Junior Classical League or at NJCL social media. We are happy to answer any and all questions you've got for us. That is the point. This year, not to boast, but I think we've got some of the most transparent national officers that we've ever had with this sort of format. So take advantage of that, please. And let your friends know that we're doing this. Let everybody who's on your friends list who might be interested in a JCL live stream know that this is going on right now. I'm going to turn the music down a little bit because it's a little loud. Okay. All right, so like I said, we're doing the format a little bit differently. Instead of doing announcements and then officer interviews or officer updates and then our feature, we're starting right off with the feature. So with me today is Annie Class from Florida, NJCL Parliamentarian. We're going to talk for the next 45 minutes or so and, of course, answer any questions that the chat has. Then in the last 15 minutes or so of the show, I'll do some announcements and we'll bring on Irene Calderon, who's the NJCL editor, who's giving this week's officer update. But we figured maybe we've been burying the lead a little bit with the format the way it is, so we thought, hey, let's shake it up a little bit and get our feature person's face right out to the guests as soon as possible. So Annie, welcome to the show. How is it going? How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I just obviously got done with the first interim of senior year, which is always one of the most stressful just because of college apps and you have taken some hard classes. But I really enjoy my classes this year, and college apps are going. They're going. I don't know if they're going well, but they're moving along.
Okay.
And obviously,
what are you taking? Oh, sorry.
What?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What are you taking? You said you were enjoying your classes.
I'm taking Calculus BC, Physics, Spanish literature, and then I'm also doing a capstone this year, which is kind of my Latin course credit, and I'm doing a comparative literature project on Ovid and a Spanish author whose name is Gongora, which is taking up about an hour and a half of my day each day, which is really, really fun.
So comparing and contrasting Spanish and Latin, their writing styles, their content, what about them?
So I'm doing actually the story of Polyphemus and Galatea, and mostly comparing, especially the language part of it in the Metamorphoses and in Gongora's writing, but it's the same story, a couple centuries apart, obviously. But I'm comparing language because I have been doing Latin grammar for as long as I can remember in the JCL, and I've been taking Spanish since I was very, very little. So part of why I took Latin was actually to help me with Spanish and just see kind of where the origin came from there. But it's kind of a culmination of my love for the two languages this year, which is just a lot of fun. And it's just comparing that myth story. And I haven't actually been able to get into myth in the JCL that much, so this is kind of my year to do that. So
that's awesome. Okay, so you've been taking Spanish and Latin for the last several years? Or
Yeah, I started Spanish in third grade, and I had the option to drop it for Latin, and I really wanted to take Latin because my brother Joe had been in the JCL
Mhm.
for 5 years before me. He just came home, he just boasted all about this organization. I was like, I need to take Latin, so I did, but I didn't want to drop Spanish, so I've basically been taking double language since seventh grade, which has been really fun.
Okay, so you get 2 elective classes every year, and you've been doing Spanish and Latin. Was there you had to do some kind of art credit probably also, right?
Yeah, so it was actually very complicated. My loophole around that, I'm taking theater this year, which is the first art credit I've done since
Hmm.
my entire high school. That's basically the only like art credit I've done, just because I've been filling it with double language. But I've been able to work around it because of the capstone. So it worked out fine. But
Okay, so the capstone's like an independent study type thing, so it doesn't take up a course slot, but you can still do the work.
yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
basically.
The reason I knew or I suspected that Annie still needed an art credit just because I think the typical high school model is that students get electives and you're usually supposed to use a couple of those like you usually get 2 electives a year, and throughout the course of high school you're supposed to take at least 2 language classes, at least 2 or at least 1, I guess, fine art or performing art class, and then your other electives you can use for more language, more arts, or things like business law or something like that. Like if there's a fun elective, some kind of STEM elective or something else at your high school, you can do that. So that's how I guessed. Um, okay, so that sounds like a really cool project for the capstone. Did you come up with that?
Yeah, it took a really long time. We have to propose our capstone like project slash theme at the end of junior year. So I was actually just going to do Catullus basically up until August of this year, and I changed it because I really wanted to compare Polyphemus and Galatea. I really wanted to get into myth. And I actually found a professor at UCLA to kind of help me with it. So I was very excited going in. But yeah, it took about a year to come up with the topic because there's just so much you can do with comparative literature, which is really exciting.
Yeah, so I want to get into that a little bit more. When you say you're comparing them, are you comparing imagery? Are you comparing specific like word use, word order, overall themes? Like are you a structure person or are you a content person? How do you approach that across 2 languages
It's a little bit of
especially?
both. One of the things I'm really comparing that's kind of something that a lot of people haven't done before. So with Polyphemus and Galatea, the natural instinct would be to compare kind of the love story there.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that was kind of cliche and I wanted to do something a little bit different. So the professor at UCLA and I came up with kind of comparing how the love is between like two animalish kind of like people,
Mm.
which is really interesting. So we're comparing that part of it, which is content, but also meter, and how that affects what each author is trying to portray in their writing. And that's where that kind of linguistic side of it comes into play is seeing the meter and how that's doing that. And also, obviously, with Latin, there's a lot of inflection and a lot of different literary devices that are used. And now I know from taking Spanish literature in high school that there's kind of a similar set of devices for Spanish language as well. So that's really cool. And so I'm also comparing that.
That's cool. Is the I'm unfamiliar with the Spanish work. Is it also in meter, and what meter? And
Yeah, there's a couple different things. It's a little bit less complicated than Latin, and I would say that because there's more form to it. I feel like a lot of Latin authors choose to just do their own thing, depending on the work that they choose. But with Spanish, there's like two major types of um, poetry, which is like ones that have um, basically 9 syllables or more in each line, or 8 syllables and less, and so or less, excuse me. So that's kind of the two different sections, but they have the same terms like anaphora, anastrophe, polysyndeton, asyndeton. All those terms really apply to that in a similar way, because in English it's kind of hard to see some of those literary devices, but in Spanish or Latin it's pretty easy to detect them.
okay, and I know one of the things that you can sometimes do. Man, this music volume is all over the place. I'm sorry, folks. Um, One of the things you can do when you're looking at a story across authors across time is you can say, okay, what is the Ovid influence in the Spanish work. And is that something that you're looking at also?
For sure, yeah. I actually didn't come up with that, so that's where the mentors come into play. My Latin teacher and the professor, they were both like, Gongora definitely took from Ovid, and I just like, I guess I would have thought of that later on, but I didn't even really think of it when going into the project. But yeah, there's a lot of influence from Ovid's work on obviously Gongora because it was written afterward, and where is he going to get that source? But I'm also looking into kind of where Ovid took his source as well, so I get that double, origin story there.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's one of those really fun things. Is okay when you read Dante, you know that Dante was influenced by Virgil, but then you know that Dante probably read the Iliad and the Odyssey and the Aeneid, and the Aeneid, of course, was influenced by the Iliad and the Odyssey, and then Dante is probably influenced by all three, and therefore doubly influenced through or by Homer through the Aeneid again. And so this is another cool thing that you can do when you do these this literature analysis across time, across authors and influence and all this. Susan Shearer says, Annie is telling us about what a study of Latin can possibly be, so much more than just translating, and how wonderful to be able to see rhetorical devices learned from Latin, but also in Spanish. Yeah, that's fun. That's are there any rhetorical devices you found in Spanish that are new to you?
No, I found it interesting because some of them have the same kind of, what is it called? I think it's an ellipsis in Latin. I took AP Latin last year. I kind of forgotten a little bit of it, but it's called a sinalefa in Spanish, but it's just like slightly different. So they have actually like similar terms. Like if you have a polysyndeton in Latin, it's a polysyndeton in Spanish, but it's just slightly different. I think in Spanish, it's a lot more vague. Like you can kind of pull literary devices where there may not actually be literary devices, whereas in Latin, because of the inflection and the nature of the language, it's a lot harder to just kind of like take from Latin and just say this is a literary device, because you really have to look at the endings and the word order a lot more than Spanish, because Spanish is a little bit more like English with the word order. So.
Speaking of controversial literary devices, my favorite one when I was in AP Latin was the word picture, where we would always. That was the first one I
ever learned.
Do what?
That was the first one I ever learned, and it was like going into the AP Latin exam, I'm like, please let there be a word picture so I can just.
I love the word picture. Like, okay, there's a rock in between the words for Ajax because Ajax has been impaled on the rock, sure.
Easy.
But we got really into this, and we used to bug my Latin teacher about it because we'd be like, oh, in this section about a tree, like if you combine words from across these 10 different lines, it like draws a tree. It's real, man. It's a word picture.
Student literary device, like I feel like you can kind of just make it up a little bit, but it's still really interesting. It's cool.
I love words. So are there word pictures in the Spanish?
No, the Spanish again is a lot more like English. You can't really change the word order and let it be the same thing. There are like maybe a little bit of word order change, but if you change the sentence structure, you're gonna just change the entire meaning. So it's harder to do that in Spanish, but it would be interesting if I found one. That would be kind of cool.
Oh, do let us know. Yes, please come back on the show and tell us all about it.
Entire project just to pay attention to the word order for Mr. Rishaw.
Wonderful. Great. Wonderful. Brian Compton says he loves word pictures. I do too, Mr. Compton. Okay, so that was not something I was planning to talk about, but that was fantastic. It's really interesting that you're taking the two languages. I don't think that's something that a lot of people do. And is there a Spanish club that you're active with in your school too?
Yeah, I'm actually, one of the things that I did in high school is I volunteered/interned with an organization called Outreach 360. And through that, I've been able to kind of become more fluent in Spanish. And then I took that, and this is one of my qualifications for national office, but I'm actually the president of the Spanish National Honor Society at my school. And we do community outreach things where we teach Hispanic adults around the community about the college admissions process and things like that in Spanish. So I'm actually extremely involved in the Spanish part of my school, but I'm also involved in Latin. I can't pick between the two.
But then it sounds like you've got good fluency then too.
Yeah, it's something I've been taking for a while, so
that's awesome. Have you done any of the spoken Latin yet?
I have not. I think it's Latina Loquendi. What is that?
Loquenda, yeah. That's in Virginia.
Yeah, I've wanted to join one, like Zoom call or whatever. But I remember vividly over the summer, I did join one instance where Jocelyn was actually speaking with someone, and it was completely in Latin. I was like, this is so cool, but my brain, I don't know if I can conjugate like that quickly or do that, but I'd like to try it in college.
It all takes practice. We're probably going to have a show, at least a couple of shows over the course of the year, where we'll bring on folks like Jocelyn who are really passionate about this spoken Latin movement, and they'll have to talk to somebody other than me because my vocabulary is nowhere near where it used to be.
I love that. I'm glad you admitted it to yourself.
Oh yeah. No, I need to brush back up, but that'd be a fun show topic. I mean, eventually we're going to run out of officers to interview, and then we're going to have other content. We've got plenty of other content planned, folks. Don't you worry. I can't, of course, tell you what it all is going to be yet because I've got to build up the suspense, but there's going to be some LaQuinda shows, some panel discussions with alumni like I've talked about. Latina LaQuinda, Latin must be spoken. And lots of other kinds of shows, so don't worry. Speaking of officer interviews, that's how Annie comes to us. She is the NJCL Parliamentarian, which is the longest and hardest to spell. Well, it's not the longest. Communications coordinator is the longest title.
It's so long to say. It's so long to say.
But it is long to say, and it is harder to spell because there's an extra I in there that you're not used to. So the Parliamentarian, Annie, why don't you tell us about what the Parliamentarian is and does?
The parliamentarian in most organizations, especially in like local organizations, is someone who helps facilitate meetings. So in the traditional sense, they're not someone who's actually ever supposed to be chairperson. They're really supposed to be sitting next to the president, basically facilitating meeting procedure. And this is in a lot of organizations don't follow meeting procedure as much. But if you come down to those local organizations, for example, my dad works at a hospital and he's on a hospital board and they have to be strict with procedures. So they have a parliamentarian there that knows procedures so that they have kind of the most efficient meeting that they can, so that people aren't trailing on or people aren't doing things that would hurt the entire assembly. So that's the traditional sense. In the JCL, the youth parliamentarians really able to work on the Constitution. Their job is really important for recruiting candidates for national office or state office or local office. And they run the election process at the National Convention. So I think it's a lot more fun to be a parliamentarian in the JCL than a lot of other organizations, to be honest. But
Gotcha. And what is your path to becoming national parliamentarian? Does your local club have a parley? All that.
I was writing about this today, so this is funny. I actually got into Parley Pro in 9th grade because a couple students and I were doing HOSA things, which is, I forgot, it's Health Occupation Students of America, which is just for people who want to go into STEM in college. And we were doing a group thing, and I was the parliamentarian of that club, and I was able to work on the Constitution. And it was like a new club, so I was able to kind of look through Robert's Rules. At that point, I had Robert's Rules because I'm a nerd, but I had that, and so I started looking through that. And then my sophomore year of high school, I found the National Association of Parliamentarians, and I became a member of that. I studied for an exam, became a member of that, took a couple courses with that. Then I became state parley, and then I took more courses. I got more involved in the NAP, and then I ran for national parley, and now I'm here.
So I mean, that's blowing through a lot of stuff. What does one learn in these courses? What is the National Association of Parliamentarians? All this.
So the National Association of Parliamentarians, or the NAP, is a group. I think it's 4,000 people around the nation that are kind of, I would say, experts, depending on how old they are, experts on parliamentary procedure. And they kind of, if you reach a certain level within the organization, you have the certification to become a consultant for different organizations around the country. For example, if you're a member, there are 4 different levels of membership, and the 3rd level is register parley, and that's at a point where you can actually be like hired for your services, because you are an expert on the Robert's Rules, and so you can do that for different organizations. But the highest level you can attain is professional registered, and that's actually where you get paid for your services, and you really that's kind of your main job. If someone is a professional registered parley, they're probably a parliamentarian as their main job. So that is the organization that you can attain that level of qualification for. It's one of the larger parley organizations. I think there's also an American Association of Parliamentarians, but I'm not sure if the qualifications there are as, I guess, concrete among different organizations as the NAP.
Okay. So once you reach tier 3 or tier 4, do you get like a stamp, like notaries have?
So you get a spot. So there's a list on the website of different registered parleys like in your area. So you're listed on there, and then you do have a little thing next to your name that's like RP, which is kind of cool. Definitely not the main reason why you should go after it, but kind of cool. But yeah, it's just a certification to serve for different organizations if it's something that you're interested in.
So in these courses that you're taking, you're learning more and more obscure bits of Robert's rules?
Yeah, so the courses I took with the NAP, I recommend these for any state parley. They're mini courses. So they're kind of like not webinars, but sort of webinars, and you can take them in about a month. So I took up like 5 of those, but they what were the topics? Like I have them right here. Hold on. They were parliamentary procedure in meetings, bylaws, nominations, voting, and elections, and then what to say and when. So they're just courses to get you more and more involved in Robert's Rules in a more fun environment than just sitting down and reading the book. But they're not that bad. They're pretty fun. Depends on what you're interested in, but I find them fun.
So a bit about the history on this. Who's Robert? Why do we follow his rules?
I think the name is actually Henry Robert, and I'm pretty sure the first draft of R&R was made in 1800s. I think it was like 1840s, although I could be totally wrong with that. But Robert's Rules is just a humongous, I think it's 716-page manual on any situation that could come up in a meeting. For the purposes of the JCL, the reason why I say that you do not need to go through the entire book is that we do not use probably 75% of what you find there. If you're interested in that would be cool to look at. But it's essentially just a meeting procedure book. So if certain things come up in a meeting, how to handle those situations, how to handle debate, how to handle motions, elections, disciplinary procedures, how to draft bylaws. I mean, literally everything that any parley would ever need to know is in that book. And then there are also, that's one parliamentary authority, but there are also others like Jefferson's. That's a pretty famous one. But that's one we use for the JCL.
Gotcha. So you're going to run, you'll run the nominations committee meeting at Nationals next year. Are you looking forward to that?
Oh, I am so pumped for national election process. I'm so excited. I did get to run the state election process, but it was virtual. So I wasn't able to chair any meetings, and I wasn't able to just see the development of the candidates as the convention went on. So I'm really hoping that this next coming year I can see obviously what the candidates bring to a physical convention, but also the process of candidates. I think you grow so much during the process of candidacy that the parliamentarian kind of gets to be like a little mentor for that.
Yep.
And I'm really excited to see the candidates we have this year.
That's wonderful. I imagine that in a huge state like Florida, which has thousands of JCL members, it's not too hard to find candidates for state office?
Yeah, I think there's always that we have the same rules as the NJCL where you cannot say that you're running beforehand. But we usually have people that we kind of know are running, but you try to get people from smaller schools. Obviously, Florida has a lot of large delegations that tend to kind of take up the board positions, and it's always good to have smaller, obviously, states at the national level, but also smaller chapters be able to get involved on the state board, because it's really beneficial for your club if you can just start that process, because once your club has had one, then you feel confident enough to send one almost each year, which is really, really nice. But in Florida, it's not terribly difficult. I know there are states that have done better in the past year. I think Georgia, Taha had about 30 candidates this past year, which is an insane amount. But yeah, it really depends on how early you start recruitment process and how much you publicize running for office and how fun it is to be an officer.
Yeah, Susan Shearer says, anyone running for parliamentarian in any organization ought to be familiar with Roberts. I'm guessing that's even if the organization uses something like Jefferson's. It seems like Roberts is the ubiquitous, that's the most widely used. So in all of these courses that you're taking with the NAP, is it all on Roberts, or have you learned these other styles also?
No, they're all on Roberts. The reason I know Jefferson specifically is I think one of my friends was in an organization that used it, and they were like, "Oh, you should learn this." I'm like, "I don't need this. Like, I have Roberts rules. Like, I do not need more." So that was the only reason there.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, can you settle it once and for all? When somebody goes to make a motion, do they say "I move," or do they say "I motion"? Because this used to be a huge topic of contention in Louisiana, at least. Because
this is so funny because I remember being in a nationals bylaws meeting like a couple years back, and there were just people that were like, "I motion," and I was like, "It's I move."
I move, folks.
Definitely not I motion.
Now, if you look up the word, yeah, I was a big stickler about this, right? I think in another life I was probably a parliamentarian. Don't tell the SCL parliamentarians that they'll never forgive me. But if you look up the verb motion. If you look up motion, there's a verb motion, and it's to make a motion, and that's just terrible. And people think, oh, well, then I motion to do whatever. And no. You say I move.
I mean, I would accept it, but I would be like, no. I'd probably give them a little like, it's I move, but it's fine.
I mean, that's about as much of a stickler about these rules as I am. It's just the grammar stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so before we move on, can you tell us a little bit more about, if Roberts was so good, why isn't there a Roberts 2? We're on Roberts 12th edition, I believe.
Yeah, they have, it's actually funny. I think the tradition is each time the family has a son who they name Henry Robert, who is tasked with continuing the lineage of the family and editing the book, which is really awful. Like, if you're the son named Robert, that's your job. Like, I just found that funny, but...
Yeah, what if you want to be like a jazz musician or something?
You can't. It's just not. Nope. It's just funny like that. I don't know why they have that. I feel like it's kind of forceful, but.
Well, it seems like you could. Maybe that can be their hobby, and they can have another. They can pursue.
I hope.
Who is the current Robert? It's probably Robert the 12th then, because I think we're on the 12th edition.
I do not know, but I imagine.
Oh, is there a photo of him? Could we get a photo of Robert's rules?
Of the original Robert?
You know, I don't think I can do that on the fly. I'm not really set up for that. But I'm sure that it's out there and that you could find like an oil paint. Actually, if you can find one, Annie, you can screenshot.
I have one up.
Okay. If you want to share your screen, I think I'll be able to show it.
I have like the Wikipedia page up, but I'll just zoom in.
Who's everybody's favorite Robert? Yeah, chat, while we're working on this, who's your favorite Robert of all time?
My favorite. Oh boy. Oh, Robert Mees, obviously.
Robert McDonald.
I can do this, but I can do this. Can you see him? Or
there
no?
He is. Henry
He's a
Martin Robert. He's a what?
This is not where I thought that this conversation would be going, but I'm loving it.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's part of the fun. So there he is, folks. There's Robert of Robert's Rules. He's got the
Oh.
Nope, you're good. And we're back. Okay. Yeah, that wasn't where I was expecting the conversation to go either. I really liked his epaulets, though. Is that what that's called?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Highlight of the picture.
Yeah. So before we go on a little bit more, because we've already covered actually a lot of the bullet points that I wanted to talk about, which is great. Very organic. Nice conversation. Can you tell us a little bit about Florida? Because I know Florida's got like districts or regions or something, and they've got these state officers that are representatives of those different regions. And I see all of this on Instagram, but I've never been to like a Florida JCL convention or anything like that. So we'll probably do a state spotlight on Florida coming up. That's another one of those features that's coming up that I can't tell you all about yet. But can you tell us a little bit about how it's broken up and
Yeah, so Florida, I can't remember. I think it has 8 regions. I should know this. I was a state officer. It has, I think, 8 regions, but we
All
have
of
regional
Florida is
leaders.
divided into 8 parts?
Yeah, yeah. And the regions are very weird too. It's like not what you would think. Like usually you would kind of do like clumps, but there's one in like southern Florida that like goes up the coast. It's just a little weird. But we have regional leaders, which I think is what you're referring to. But regional leaders are something that Colin Kane, I believe, instituted, and he was actually a national VP. I want to say he was the national second VP. I don't know. That was a couple years ago. Um, and he created regional leaders, and they're basically like they're officers, but they're not state officers. It's basically just to control Florida because Florida is a very large state, like long state, and I think it's a lot easier if the state is shorter, just because the state officers can then meet more frequently and they can drive and see each other and just kind of plan spontaneous meetings. But Florida, we can't do that. We have pretty strict 2 meetings, major meetings per year because people live. I think someone had to actually fly to one of the meetings last year, which is unexpected because it would have taken him probably like 11 hours to drive. It was ridiculous. But the regional leaders basically control the different regions and make sure that the different regions are paying attention to these service projects and things that the VP does. And also there's just another contact that a local chapter can reach out to if they don't feel comfortable reaching out to a state officer. And then again, normally the state officers come from very different parts of the state. So we have our fall meeting in the middle of the state and then our spring meeting at the president's house normally.
Gotcha. Okay. So they're not state officers. You said they don't go to these board meetings?
No, they are basically, I was just saying regional officers that the state board actually picks, and they're announced to nationals and they serve for that year. And it's actually a really great way for FJCLers to get into office without getting on the state board. A lot of them use it to get experience with the state board, and then they actually use it as a qualification when they're running for office, which is amazing because that's awesome. But yeah. I mean, any state that's pretty big, I feel like regional leaders are a must because they are really great for especially recruitment techniques. How we were saying that it wasn't that difficult to get people to run for state office because usually they come from being a regional leader, which is really nice, but also just, again, controlling the state.
Okay.
It's lengthy.
It's another step in the cursus honorum so that people
can right, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. People are saying Illinois and California have both been divided. I know Texas, I think, has different regions. So some of these states do something similar, it sounds like. Gotcha. So, okay. I'm looking again at my notes. Because you said, I always ask the people like what they want to talk about, and you said you wanted to talk about the NAP and how you became so enthusiastic about parliamentary procedure. I think we covered that. Oh yeah, I wanted to ask, what's your favorite obscure rule of parliamentary procedure?
I don't know if it's obscure. There's this really interesting like debate rule, and you get to debate on a motion 2 times for 10 minutes each. And when I read that, I was very confused because I was like sitting there and I'm thinking about the JCL, and I'm like, if I'm chairing, for example, I had to chair a meeting last year for the FJCL delegation at nationals, the voting meeting, and I'm sitting there like, who in the JCL would get up for 10 minutes and speak about a specific candidate? So that's the one that like, it's really interesting because it's very strict rule. Like you would have to put it somewhere in your bylaws. You don't need to do that in order to do that, or you would have to move to limit or extend limits of debate, but that's a whole different subject. But it's just a strict rule that I just don't understand. In youth organizations specifically, 10 minutes, and then after the 2 times, you can't speak again. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, I like that rule. I mean, I don't like that rule, but I like that it's there. It's just funny to me.
Okay. Then let's see. Something else, or anything FJCL related. We talked a little bit about FJCL, Curtamen, and how taking double language has allowed me to appreciate Latin more. So we covered all of those except for Curtamen. What did you want to talk about Curtamen?
I would just say that that's kind of like the reason I got into the JCL. It's kind of my origin story was in 7th grade, my brother had been on a couple national crotomon teams, and I really wanted to be on a national crotomon team. So my 7th grade year, I was like hammering grammar facts, like ridiculously. We had crotomon practice literally every day at lunch. It was actually an obsession, but it ended up fine in the end. But that was kind of the way I got into like Latin club. And I say to anyone who wants to get into crotomon, there are so many people that are afraid to get into crotomon because they think it's like some sort of separate entity within the JCL, but like everyone's like everyone can get in. It's a really, really fun environment. You can meet some really, really cool JCLers through crotomon. So that's pretty important in the JCL in general.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for that perspective. That's something that I like to stress too, is that everybody can play this game. It's a game.
Yeah,
it's for fun.
There's just for some reason people will like sometimes be afraid of the crotomon players because they're like, oh, like they study so much and all this stuff, and it's like it's just a passion. And if you have a passion for a specific part of classics, like knowledge-wise, then you can play crotomon. Even if you don't, there's so many people I've seen who just love the game to just play it with their friends. Like especially now that we have Zoom crotomon, like that's super fun.
Yep, and there's going to be plenty of Zoom crotomon coming to this channel in the coming months, so keep an eye out for that. Speaking of passions, I know that one of your passions is graphic design.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, Annie made several of the Instagram post graphics announcing JCLive whenever we had the 3-2-1 countdown for JCLive, and she made several others. So she's, I mean, far and away much better at graphic design stuff than I am. And how did you get into that? And what are your outlets for that? How do you practice and all that?
I actually got into that while I was a state officer, and because I was a state officer, I needed to make a couple guides, and so I naively got Adobe InDesign. And if anyone has used Adobe InDesign, it's pretty complicated for a newbie. It's not something that you just kind of get on and you know exactly what's going on. So I downloaded it, and then I was like, I'm challenging myself to figure out how this works. And that's kind of how I got into it. I just kind of wanted to challenge myself and see if I could figure out how it worked in like a month. It's kind of like a little speed challenge. But I got into it. I started working on guides, and I kind of fell in love with it. I just like designing in my free time. And then obviously Canva is a huge thing for JCLers, specifically for like social media. Mm-hmm. That's huge. But it was more of like, I need to make guides and I really like this. And so that's how I got into it. And that's also something I carry into other parts of my life now, though. So it goes to show you that being an officer in the JCL can open doors to a lot of different things and not just the specific thing that you're working on. Mm-hmm. Usually editors know Adobe InDesign, but I now know it and I use it for website design for several organizations I'm a part of outside the JCL. So that sort of stuff is, again, something that you learn as a state officer. There are a lot of other skills, obviously, that I've learned as a state officer, but that one is up there.
Yeah, and that'll be especially helpful when you become an SCLer and you start working on the convention here. It'll be very nice when you can help us make graphics and all that. Yeah. So a question, join SCL. A question in the chat that came up, Susan Shear says, 21 people, we've got, I think 21, 26 now viewers watching, is a very small percentage of the membership. And I wanted to derail the conversation a little bit and talk about that because we've got about 30 people watching right now. And I think it's a good community in the chat. People are coming back week after week. And I would very much like to see that number go up because like Ms. Shearer said, 30 people, 20 people we're a 30,000 member organization. We got lots of more folks who could be watching this show. And I'm somewhat at a loss as to how to promote this show more. I'm putting posts on Instagram, an advertisement post and a We Are Live post every week. And then posting the recap on Facebook and Instagram and everything else. We've got about 2,000 members who follow our Instagram. I'm emailing JCL sponsors, so all the teachers who run a club. I'm letting them know every month that we are doing this show. And like there are some other opportunities that have come up. For example, we're going to promote JCLive at the Massachusetts Classics Day, which I know is coming up and is hopefully going to be very well attended. I think I'm going to start emailing sponsors of large clubs myself, just personally saying, hey, please promote this to your students. And there's another idea. What was the I've forgotten the other idea. But if anybody in the chat, or Annie, if you have any idea of how we can promote the show more, do let me know. There's a feedback form in the description of the show for, hey, how do you have any suggestions for the show? For example, we started playing music because somebody said, hey, could you play some music on the show? So if anybody here has any suggestions about how to grow the membership, the viewership, do let me know, because we want to reach every JCLer out there. I think we've got good content, particularly once we start putting more Kurtaman stuff on this channel. I think that's going to get a lot of views. Kurtaman's always very popular, but I'm worried that the average freshman 9th grade student who just joined JCL and doesn't really know that there's a national organization and doesn't really know that there's a state organization, for example, is aware that this exists, because they probably don't follow us on Instagram, and their teacher may or may not have time to tell them that this is happening. So I'm not sure how to reach these students if they're not following us on Instagram, other than word of mouth from y'all, from the people who are watching the show. Y'all have friends, your friends have friends. We can reach out to JCLers. I'm emailing, for big shows like the Magister Craft show, I emailed every JCL sponsor, everybody who's ever subscribed to the Torch US, everybody who went to nationals last year, like emailing all of these people. And we got up to 60 viewers for that show, but we haven't broken 100 yet, and I'd very much like to. So if anybody has ideas, or if y'all want to debate that in the chat and throw ideas out there, that'd be something that I would really appreciate, because I want to get this show in front of more people. Let's see.
I would say one thing that you could do right now is just say, if you're a state officer who's watching this, make a graphic for your state Instagram that is promoting the show as well. Because I know there's a lot of JCLers that follow the state Instagrams without following the national Instagram, just because they maybe haven't been to a national convention and they don't know there's a lot of other people in the organization. I know in 7th grade, I don't think I was following the national JCL. So that sort of thing is really helpful for the national officers and for Mr. Rostrop and anyone who's kind of behind the scenes of JCLive. If you could create graphics for your own state and post them on your own Instagram, or even do a story when JCLive is happening, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, let's see. Danielle Ladd said, I hadn't heard of this show till the interview with Magister Craft, but here you are, so I'm glad that worked. Thank you, and do be sure to tell your friends. Jolie Lowe says, as a state president, I relate to the problem of active online participation. I'd say the best is connecting with individuals and getting them involved. I'll definitely be promoting this in Kentucky. Thank you very much. And everybody, especially the state and local officers who are here, y'all have a platform to talk to people from, and I'd appreciate certainly if you promote this, because we put a lot of work into this show, and it's once a week, and that's I want to get as many eyes as possible on this. Lillian says, I send it to my club every single week and send it to my club Remind. Thank you. Appreciate that. If you have a club or state Remind, definitely send the link through the Remind or any kind of group chat, like a group me or something like that. Dakota Morosi says, I think with so many people still quarantining or dealing with COVID, morale is low and so is motivation. It can be hard to encourage people to do anything other than what's super necessary. Yeah, I think we're running into that. Maybe this would have been much more successful in a non-COVID year, rolling out this model, but part of this was, hey, a lot of people are dealing with COVID, and so if you can't go to your normal JCL activities or whatever, at least there's going to be a space here online. So anyway, this is an ongoing brainstorming topic, but I just wanted to take 5 minutes and talk about it here. Annie, the last thing I want to talk to you about is Waffles.
Oh my goodness. I got so many people contacting me about this.
Yes, because in your officer introduction, you said, you said that you could give a 5-hour course on how to properly season waffles. One, season is a weird word for waffles. I would say like what waffle toppings to use, because like seasoning, you think of
I
salt
thought that it might be like a little like a little like, I don't know, new vocab for this specific thing, but then it just didn't end up working because I had so many people contacting me about like specific seasonings to put in waffles, and I was like, I meant toppings.
They're
Like,
toppings.
I'm not talking about seasoning waffle batter.
Okay, so you said people make mistakes with their waffles. What are some common mistakes you see in the preparation of waffles, let's say?
Yeah, so a lot of people just like eat their waffles with syrup, which is like fine. But I have found my calculus class, this is the nerdiest thing that's ever happened, but we we have like waffle parties sometimes, and we bring a bunch of toppings. And so we make the waffles from like the waffle batter that someone brings in. And then we put like chocolate chips on them, we put like syrup, we put honey, we put whipped cream, like any sorts of candy. And it just makes like, I didn't think this was a thing, but it just makes the waffle like 10 times better.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's so many people out there, or like powdered sugar too. There's so many people out there that are just like kind of depressingly like putting on syrup and then just calling it a day. But there's like way more options to make your waffles better. And I'm passionate about this.
Okay.
Because people are not getting enough out of the experience.
So do you do waffles with the calculus class because it's like Cartesian coordinates? It's like a graph.
I wish. No, we actually, as a class, went to Waffle House, and the Waffle House, like, the plates have like an integration sign on it. So we were like freaking out. But yeah, my calc classes, we party with waffles.
Okay. You could switch over to polar coordinates one time and do pancakes.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Nice and round. Let's see. Okay. What we need is a live stream that's just a presentation of waffles. Wait, Annie, have you had chicken and waffles?
I am actually pescatarian.
Oh.
So I don't.
Well, shoot. Because that's a fun way to have waffles.
I get like one day, maybe.
Okay. I'm sure there's Beyond chicken in the pipeline or something. Like if you've had the Beyond sausage or Beyond burger, there's probably a Beyond chicken coming along. And
I'll look it up, and if I find something, I will do a presentation on it for JCLive. How about that?
Gotcha. Yes. We'll bring you back on MasterChef.
With like a chef outfit, yeah. Perfect.
For Annie, Dakota Morosi asks, do you like pancakes, waffles, or French toast more? These are the real questions. For
sure, waffles. I know Dakota. Dakota, you know me better than this. Of course, waffles. Yeah. Pancakes are fine, but like, I just feel like I'm not getting enough with a pancake. And then French toast is just kind of out there. Like, I'm not going to go make French toast. It's way too much time.
Okay. I mean, I've never found a French toast that I didn't like. I'll just say that.
I like it. It's just, it's not as fun to say. Like, I'm going to have waffles versus like, I'm going to have French toast. Like, if I'm like out to like a fancy brunch, maybe I'll get French toast.
Like a stuffed French toast, you know?
Yeah. I respect it. It's not my favorite.
Cooking episode of JCLive. Now that is a great idea.
I would love that. Yes.
Man, we'll do that. Tyler Cadavar says, what is the best place to get waffles? I like to make waffles. Like if you have a waffle maker
at home, right? Like making them. I mean, any like fancy brunch place, but like homemade waffles are the best waffles. Definitely, for sure.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to add that that cooking episode idea to my official list of ideas for future stories. That would be fantastic.
Oh boy.
Because I don't know if y'all know, but I like cooking. I like talking about the various, chemistry that's happening in cooking because I'm like that, and all this. So cooking could be a lot of fun. What we need is a cooking episode and then a JCL recipe book. These are all fantastic ideas.
Cooking show competition among the national officers and national committee. Just try to live stream that somehow.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully we'll have hundreds of viewers by this point. This is how we're really going to blow up the live stream and get all of our content out to people. So for folks who are just joining or weren't here for the discussion earlier, we're trying to push JCLive. We're trying to promote it in any way we can. So the best thing that you can do is promote the show by word of mouth, because we really rely on JCLers telling other JCLers, hey, there's this cool live stream show out there every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Come out and hang out with Mr. Ristroff and the national officers, and it's a great time. So do let people know. We post, I do everything I can with Instagram and Facebook and everything else, but that's only reaching so many people, and we want to reach 10, 100,000 times that many people. So Maxine asks, Annie, do you read Robert's Rules before bed every night?
I don't want to answer this. I'm not gonna answer that, Maxine.
Take the fifth.
Inspiring question.
Okay. Well, with that, folks, I think we're going to thank Annie and say bid her adieu, because we've got our announcements and our officer report, which we didn't do in the beginning. Do let me know in the comments, actually. One of the things that can help promote the show via the YouTube algorithm, of course, is if people like. So please like the stream if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. There's a nice little alert set up for if you subscribe. And if you leave a comment on the video, like the live chat is great, but if you leave a comment, I think that helps boost us on the algorithm. So if you have opinions about putting the feature first and then the officer report and the announcements last, let me know in the comments, actually, not in the live chat, and I'll read those all tomorrow, and we can adjust from there. So Annie, thanks so much for being on the show. It's been a blast. I look forward to hanging out with you at fall planning meeting and all of the other parliamentarian things that you've got planned for the year.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Estraw.
Absolutely. Okay. We'll see you later. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and let's see. Hang on just 1 second. 1 second. I'm going to call over Irene Calderon, who's giving our officer report for today. Irene, are you around?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Hi, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Good. It was nice listening to Annie's interview. I enjoyed it.
I'm glad. What have you got for us this week?
So, first of all, I have some slides I want to share.
Okay.
So, can you see that okay?
Yep.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. First of all, just another reminder that the articles for the winter section of the Torch US are due soon. If you're working on a piece, but you don't think you'll be finished by that time, that's totally fine. Just keep in mind that the latest I can accept articles is the first week of November. Also, I need updates on your state chapters. So for state officers tuning in tonight, please email me your updates at editor@njcl.org. And a quick note about JCL Bookshelf, I'm nearing the home stretch. I'm waiting for some state and local JCLs to send me their publications. Also, again, if you know of local JCLs who would like to have their publication on the site, please have them send their publications to me at editor@njcl.org. So, for my remaining time here today, I would like to briefly report on this fascinating research article released a little over 2 weeks ago. It's the perfect blend of the classics and neuroscience, which are subjects near and dear to my heart. An archaeology team from the University of Naples found brain cells that actually turned to glass in the remains of a Herculanean man. But how did this happen? As you all may well know, Mount Vesuvius erupted in the year 79 AD, releasing a volcanic hot ash avalanche that killed and buried the inhabitants of Pompeii and Herculaneum. This hot ash rapidly heated organic materials like wood and flesh that were carbonized, or essentially turned to charcoal. They were also preserved by the high temperatures. Archaeologists rarely uncover human brains during their digs, and if they do, the organs feel soap-like and smooth. Brain and neural tissues are typically saponified, meaning that their triglycerides, which are a type of lipid or fat, are broken down into glycerol and fatty acid salts. But Petroni and his co-authors found something very different, however, when they examined the remains of a man who perished in Herculaneum during the Vesuvius eruption. What separated him from the other Herculanean victims was that he had not died on the waterfront, but on the wooden bed in a building within the city. He was enveloped in a surge of hot ash, and his brain had been burned to twisted black bits through a process called vitrification, in which the brain turns into glass that encrusted the surface of his skull. Petroni and his team took the shards of brain tissue and analyzed the proteins found within. Based on the concentrations of these proteins and the position of the sample in the back of the skull, the team suspects that they may have discovered part of the man's spinal cord and cerebellum. which is a brain structure at the base of the skull that is involved in movement and coordination. They found proteins known to be found in different areas of the brain, such as the cerebral cortex, the amygdala, etc. As for what is on the slide here, you can see the axonal structures from a specimen taken from an SEM micrograph. Next to this is a cartoon that shows you a normal neuron and its structures for reference. This archaeological finding indicates that some time gaps may have occurred during the sequence of pyroclastic flow at Pompeii and Herculaneum, leading to the rapid heating and subsequent cooling, which is essential in transforming the brain tissue into glass. This may open up more archaeological investigations on previously undetected evidence in the sites buried by the Vesuvius eruptions. And yeah, that's all I have.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That is really cool. So for those of you interested in more about this saponification versus vitrification, these heating rates and material science questions, and SEM, that's a scanning electron microscope, these are some cool science questions that we may be able to talk about, some interesting materials science questions that we might be able to talk about in a couple of weeks when we have a panel of former JCLers who have gone into the sciences. So we'll be doing that in 2 weeks. And Irene, I'll be sure to bring this up and see if they've read about that and if they've got any insight into that. Thank you so much. And we'll see you also in I think 3 weeks for your officer interview. And in the meantime, thanks for that update. That was really cool.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Talk to you later. Bye. Okay, let's see. The last thing I've got for the show right now is a couple of announcements to go through just before we end. Let's see. If possible, it would be nice if state boards could be supplied with images to post announcing JCLive and when y'all are going live, so it's easier for states to propagandize it on social media. Okay, yeah, I can do that because I've got a lot of state officer email addresses, so I can work on that. Announcements in the last couple of minutes. Join JCL. I think we've been through this, but for anybody watching who's not a part of JCL, go ahead and join JCL. It's an awesome community. As you can see here, we've got a lively chat. We've got national officers who are very talented and have all sorts of skills to talk about. We've got something for everybody here in JCL. And if you join now, your teacher is eligible to receive some JCL merchandise from the National JCL office. So go ahead and ask your teacher to register your chapter as soon as possible. Irene talked about submitting content to the Torch US. If you've been in JCL for a while and you've got a favorite JCL memory, please go ahead and submit it to our book project of where we are collecting a whole bunch of JCL memories from as many alumni and current members as possible, and we're going to compile them into a book. The tentative deadline on that is December 31st, but I'm probably going to have if you submit your memory by November 15th, you're eligible to win a t-shirt or something like that to encourage more people to submit. So all of you in the chat, I know you've got JCL memories. Please do go ahead and submit those ASAP. Other things, we're going to be having live Kurtaman on the show pretty soon, or on the channel pretty soon. We talked about that. This is new. There's, for your JCL sponsors, for your Latin teachers, at Massachusetts is spelled wrong there, isn't it? Yeah, sorry. For the Mass JCL Classics Day that's happening on the 24th, there's going to be a session for JCL sponsors about best practices for running a JCL chapter during COVID. So if your teachers are interested in that, they should email Alex Cho at firstvp@massjcl.org to sign up for that, even if they haven't signed up for the whole Classics Day experience. Okay, so people are motivated by the t-shirt. Got it. Photo of the month is coming up. That'll be due on the 31st, so submit your October photo of the month by the end of the month. There's more information at this link here. Then, we already talked about Well, we've gone through JCLive, so you don't need the stream rules, but our subscriber goals, we are ticking closer and closer towards our 1,000 subscriber count. And again, please do spread the word about this show. Word of mouth is going to be our most successful way of getting new people to join every Monday. So please tell all your friends. Please, please, please tell all your friends to come watch the show. And next week we will be talking with Vivian Wu, who is our national JCL historian. With that, that's our show. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be here. We'll be back next Monday. We'll be here every Monday this year with other content on Thursdays and weekends and other days. But JCLive, an interview like this or other content every single Monday. Thanks so much for joining us. We will be back next week. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and share the stream with your friends so we can boost views and hopefully get some more viewers next Monday. Thanks very much. I'll see y'all in a week. Cheers.